like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel, where I can say today we are finally beginning our quest to review every single game that was released in the PAL region on the Sega Saturn. We are going to be starting with the Saturn's first ever game, the originator of the 3D fighting game Virtua Fighter. I thought that would be a good place to start. Now when I take a look at the games, I'm going to be taking a look at their graphics, the sounds and the music, how they play, and what kind of longevity the game will provide for you, to give you an idea of whether this game is worth playing today or whether it's worth chucking in the trash or in the back of your cupboard to leave there for the rest of time, never to be touched again. So without further ado, let's get on with the first review of the first ever Saturn game, Virtua Fighter.
Now when you first load up the game, if you've never played Virtua Fighter before, you're probably going to be shocked by the lack of options and the very basic menu system. Literally arcade VS and options is all you get. Options just gives you the things that you'd expect, changing the number of points to win a match, time limit, difficulty, testing the sounds, and you can view the controls as well. But obviously arcade mode is where it's at. You get 8 fighters to pick from: Kyra, Pi, Lau, Wolf, Jeffrey, Cage, Sarah, and Jackie. And they give you a really cheesy, flat-shaded polygon smile. As soon as you get into the game, you will realize this is the most basic 3D-looking fighter of all time. If you want a game to show to your friends, to impress them with what the Saturn was capable of doing, then Virtua Fighter is definitely not the game to go to. The count of polygons per fighter is incredibly low. I'd like to know how many polygons make up each character, because it's probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, of any 3D fighter, possibly with the exception of Virtua Fighter on the 32X. As well as the fighters not looking particularly great, the backgrounds are about as basic as you can possibly get. There's really not a lot to see and not a lot going on with each environment. It's just a very low quality flat 2D image behind the 3D battlefield, and that is really all you get. As well as the characters and the background's not looking great. There tends to be quite a few glitches in the game, with the camera angles messing up the way you fight, glitches in replays, and just a general sense of untidiness. That the game was probably rushed, because obviously they released Virtua Fighter Remix a while after this to try and correct it and give fans a real version of Virtua Fighter. One thing that Virtua Fighter does have in an abundance is quality music. In all fairness, the music for each stage is actually of a very good quality, and the good thing is with the Virtua Fighter disc, you can put it in your CD player and actually listen to it, or burn it, so you can actually listen to the soundtrack whenever you want. And each stage has its own unique theme, and they are genuinely very good tunes. Now, if you've got any knowledge of Virtua Fighter games, the thing that most people would say is the best about them is the way that they play. And thankfully, even though Virtua Fighter is over 25 years old, it is still playable. The game is still fairly responsive in the way you pull off your combos and your moves, and it does have a great depth to its gameplay. Now, Virtua Fighter, the original one, is actually pretty tough. The first fights are quite easy. You can get through them just by hitting buttons, really, and coming up with anything you can muster. But as soon as you get to about round 5 or 6, the fights tend to just jump up in difficulty, and they can be quite tough. And probably the main reason for this is because there is a severe lack of modes in the game. They thought they would ramp up the difficulty to make it harder to complete. And obviously, if you get past the original 8 fighters, you do fight Dural as well as the bonus one. Obviously, the key to this game is mastering each fighter. You know, there's only 8 fighters, but they have got a selection of moves to use. I think the back of the box says there are over 700 moves to master in the game, and that is probably about right if you include every single possible move that every character can do. Take into account, the harder you play it on, the better you need to be at A, remembering all of your moves, and B, actually blocking and timing your blocks, because the computer is absolutely incredible at blocking your moves. Even if you go from a high move down to a low move, the computer can easily block both and then counter you, and it can be incredibly frustrating and an incredibly difficult game to play. The only other downsides really with the way that it plays are those horrible floaty jumps. When you jump up by mistake and you're not doing a move, you're just waiting to come back down for the opponent to either punch you or kick you in your face and put your ass on the ground. The only other thing is sometimes the controls don't feel quite as responsive as you would want, and you think you've inputted the command to pull off a move and your character just stands there or jumps up in the sky and you get battered on the way down. Finally, we have to address the sort of longevity or lifespan that this game actually has. Now, if you went out and paid $39.99 for this game in today's environment, you would be unbelievably gutted and disappointed with just an arcade mode and a VS mode. There really is a lack of options and variety to keep you coming back. The real depth of the game comes from trying to master every single move for every single character. Now, obviously, some people will take up that challenge, but a lot of general sort of generic gamers don't want to do that. They don't want to put the time in just to learn every single move in a game when there's not actually anything else to unlock. So in terms of lifespan, Virtua Fighter doesn't have a great lifespan, and in all fairness, if you pair it up against Virtua Fighter 2, it isn't better. It fails in every single respect, and it is really hard to sell Virtua Fighter as a game that you would want to play in this day and age. Simply put, Virtua Fighter 2 surpasses it in so many ways, and obviously we'll see that when I come to review Virtua Fighter 2. But in closing, Virtua Fighter is a great game to look back on where to see 3D fighters originated from. But apart from that, it hasn't really got anything to offer. It's not expensive, of course, and if you're trying to complete the entire collection, yeah, pick it up by all means. But if you're looking for something to actually actively play for a period of time, then Virtua Fighter is not the game for you. What are your thoughts on Virtua Fighter? Do you still fire it up from time to time, now and again, to have a blast on it, or does it just sit on your shelf or in the back of your cupboard collecting dust until the end of time? Give me your thoughts down below. That is all for our first review, and I will be back soon with the next game in our series of reviews. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.